Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
I'm Matt Green. I'm a grateful alcoholic.
Hi, Matt.
I'd like to welcome any new people that are here. This is the kind of meeting new people like, because they're sitting up thinking and can't sleep. Or at least I did when I was new. It's great to be down here at this roundup. I know a lot of people here, and I talked to Ron a couple of years ago about coming down here and doing this, and he goes to a little conference up in the mountains by where I live, and he's involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I don't know, it's just Alcoholics Anonymous is the most awesome thing I've ever found in my life, even though I didn't want it. I hated Alcoholics Anonymous. They sucked. It's where the thing that's the best for you, you're going to hate the most, right? Something else is going to work better. And we got here early, and I got to see Walt and Mary. They're friends of mine for a long time, and I seen Dave, and Walt was telling me that Dave's registered to marry people in Oklahoma now, and I asked Dave if he'd marry me for the 9th time if I get married for a 9th time, and he looked kind of funny, but and for those of you that don't know, it's not my fault, but I've been married and divorced 8 times. I think that's funny, huh? Cost me a lot of money to do that kind of shit, After my 8th divorce, someone finally told me, "Did you know you can not get married?" I didn't know that, I thought you got drunk whether you were married or not, marry another one and bring her home too, But marriage isn't my problem. Well, it kind of has a little bit, but drinking's really my problem, or I thought it was. Drinking was the answer to all my problems, and we have minds that want to look at what drinking's doing. Not the good parts of it, not what alcohol really does. We want, or my mind imagines the good things about alcohol. And my parents got divorced in between the 3rd and 4th grade, and all my whole life I was scared and afraid, and I didn't fit in, and the other kids picked on me. I was ugly, I was skinny, I was afraid, I was shy, and it just seemed like all the other kids had it together. And then my parents get a divorce, and I was wearing a T-shirt today when I got here. We pulled out in front where you register, and I had this T-shirt on that said "It's all about me." And this girl, she's here at the conference, I guess. She pulls up, and she goes, "I just bought a bracelet that says it's all about me. Do you want it?" And I go, "Yeah." She jumps out and pops over in her trunk and gives me this bracelet that says it's all about me. And it was about me all my life. Until I did the inventories in Alcoholics Anonymous, I never thought, even as a small child, about anybody else but me. All the problems that were happening to me in the world were happening to me, nobody else in the whole wide world. I had brothers, but it wasn't happening to them, it was happening to me only. The big book says we're selfish and self-centered. It's the root of all our problems. And that was my problem way before I ever took a drink. When I took a drink before the 4th grade, alcohol became the solution, the savior in my life. And it talks in the book about going down to the depths of alcoholism, and it talks about crossing an invisible line. And I don't know, I didn't cross no invisible line. I started on Thunderbird. My very first drink, that first guzzling was, because in my mind, see, my parents had these parties, people drank and they laughed and they enjoyed life, right? And when my world fell apart and I don't know how to deal with life, the thought of drinking and life would be fun, that's what came to my mind. Now the fist fights and the cops and the puking and all that stuff, that was never in the picture. So I got the Bacardi rum and guzzled it, and I'd like to tell you, God, I became good looking, I had muscles, but that stuff was nasty. And instantly, you know how fast an alcoholic can think when they need to. I remember that when you puke, it smells like hell. And I'm in my mom's bedroom, and I'd get caught for stealing her Bacardi rum, so I held my hand over my mouth and my nose, and I let that go up about 20 times, up and down, and it finally stayed down. And the book says we drink essentially for the effect produced by alcohol, and I'm sure to tell you it wasn't for the taste of that crap, man. But when that stuff finally settled down in my stomach, it's like, all the madness, all the insecurity, all the feeling alone, all the shyness, all the crap going on, feeling abandoned by my parents. You know what? It didn't take it away, but it just didn't matter. It was just okay. And I chased that effect to just be okay, to take a drink of alcohol and be okay. And that's when the Thunderbird came in, because the guy that lived across the alley from me that I couldn't stand his gut, his mom was an alcoholic. And I knew every day if I became buddies with this guy, every day after school there'd be a half a bottle of hot Thunderbird on the kitchen table, so he became my best friend. And so they talk about going down this ladder of alcoholism, and drinking cheaper wines. Hell, I started down there. And you don't drink hot Thunderbird right off the gate thinking it tastes really good. But, when you're in the 4th grade, you can't be real picky. And and there's another kid, I can't stand this. This was one of those spoiled little one kid to the family brats, just, the kind you can't stand, and he's a mama's little boy, and you just want to slap him every day, And his dad was a wine salesman, and there was always cases of hot champagne and hot wine in this guy's parents' garage, so he became my best buddy too. And man, you drink a bottle of that hot champagne before your first period class, man, and you don't do too good. But what that effect that alcohol produces is like you're not afraid anymore, right? And those kids pick on you for not having a daddy, because you live in a little tiny town where everybody knows everybody, and the kids would pick on you for your daddy not being there, or how scrawny you were, or whatever. And you could whip 4 kids' ass on the way to first period. And it gets around school real fast that you're this tough guy, and don't mess with that Matt Green kid. He'll beat your ass for looking at him wrong. And so people stay away from you, and that's a safe place for a guy like me, because if you're around me, you find out I'm really scared and full of fear inside. And so alcohol became my savior, man, and I did everything I needed to do to drink. I would burglarize houses, I would steal your TVs and everything and throw them away. But I'd keep the booze to make it look like a burglary. And you got to be willing to go to any lengths to get that booze, And then you got this big shotism going, and you got to be better than, even though inside you feel less than. And of course your buddy gets a brand new bicycle for Christmas and it pisses you off and you got to be better, so you go out and you steal a bicycle. But now the fear sets in, right? But if it's not better than his. So you go back out and you steal a second bicycle. And the fear sets in. But both of those combined ain't as good as his. So you steal a third bicycle. And the fear still sets in. And you're drinking, trying to get rid of the fear, man. And now you're only in the 4th grade now. And you go out and you steal the 4th bicycle. And by now it doesn't matter if Indian's better than his. You got a hell of a lot more than he does. So, you know. And if you have that kind of behavior in a small town, you tend to get in a little trouble with the police. And the police department, you know, I mean, I think they had good intentions, just like they do nowadays, you know. I lived in this little tiny hick town where they rode horses to town and drove tractors to town and that was part of my problem. You know, I'm growing up in this little hick town. I need excitement in my life. You know, I got divorced parents. I got the wrong dog. He shits in the wrong spot in the yard, you know, and, our TV's black and white and, just everything's wrong in my life. But everybody comes to town on Saturday and their idea was they're going to handcuff me to this fire hydrant right at the edge of town where everybody passes to get in town, and they're going to put some silver paint there. And everybody's going to come to town. I'm going to have to paint this fire hydrant. I'm going to get humiliated. I'm not going to behave like that anymore. I'm going to shape up and be a good boy. It's a good idea. But what the Clovis Police Department didn't understand, there's 2 kinds of kids born in this world. There's a fire hydrant painting kind of a kid, and there's a non-fire hydrant painting kind of a kid. And I don't care how bad you humiliate me, I'm not going to paint that fire hydrant, you know. So then they take you to juvenile hall and you're full of fear, man. You ain't never been locked up before. And so what do, man? When fear sets in, you beat the hell out of the first guy you see. And it spreads through juvenile hall real quick that there's a mad kid in juvenile hall locked up, and don't mess with him. He's crazy. And that's what you do. And you're locked up in juvenile hall and you don't have no booze. And so you just act like a madman to keep everybody away from you so they don't know inside you're really afraid. And you get out of juvenile hall and you just keep doing it. The only thing you know that works is drinking, and you keep doing it. And it's like, you're afraid to dance, and you go to the 7th and 8th grade dances, and the fear sets in. You can't ask a girl to dance because if she says no, you'll be humiliated. If she says yes, you don't know how to dance anyway, so you'll be humiliated. So you stand in the back of the gym, man, you look tough, all by yourself, leaning up against the wall, smoking cigarettes, looking tough. And you drink before a dance, and all of a sudden, man, those girls are real lucky to have you there to ask them to dance. You puke on a few of them, but, it's... you got to be willing to go any lengths to drink, though, so it's not no big deal, and eventually you can't take the beatings from your mom's drunken boyfriends when you try to show some kind of affection, and you move out the night before you turn 13, and you've been around with the Hells Angels, and you move in with a president of the Hells Angels on the night of your 13th birthday, and you're drinking, and you want to feel part of the deal, and running with the Hells Angels was a safe place for me because wherever we rode, people were running to get away from us, and that was a safe place. You see, the crazier I am, the more you stay away from me, and I don't have to worry that you're going to find out I'm afraid inside. On that night, they held out some pills, and they said, take these, and I want to be part of the deal. And I didn't ask them what they were. I took them. I want to be part of the deal. And I don't remember the rest of the night, but I remember I woke up the next morning thinking, God, you're a scumbag now. You took some of that stuff you should never take. Drinking's okay, but you shouldn't have never took that stuff. And I couldn't make it out of bed, and they held this white powder out, and they said, take some of this, and make it to work. And at that time, I was pulling the automatic transmissions out, and they rebuilt them, and I put them back in. And And my boss got loaded, and I'm at work, and he kicks a creeper and goes, "Boy, you must have took too much of that white stuff. You're not getting your work done. All you're doing is spinning round and round on the creeper." Yeah. He goes, "You better drink something and slow down." And I don't know how you guys do it, but I always overshoot the mark, man. And the next thing I know, he's kicking the creeper, saying, "You must have drank too much. You're not getting your work done. All you're doing is sleeping on the creeper. You better take some more white stuff." And I did, and I got home, and I drank, and I drank, and I drank. I didn't want to eat no more pills. I was afraid of it, and I couldn't go to sleep. And they said, "Take these, you'll go to sleep." And I took those, and it started the madness of trying to find the right combination to function in the world, you know. And I justified it that I'll never stick a needle in my arm on my 16th birthday. That went out the window too. And I met this good-looking blonde that was going to be the mother of my children. She didn't know nothing about it, but it was a it was a good plan. And you notice how we always have a good plan A. Plan B ain't never worth a shit, but plan A always sounds good. We always got a good idea. And we were drunk as hell, and someone talked about shooting some heroin and cocaine, and since this was going to be the mother of my children, you know, I had to do it, and we did, and I don't know what happened that night, but I've never seen her since, to this day. But I remember coming to in the morning, man, and not remembering the night, but I remember I stuck a needle in my arm, and I thought, you know what, the world made you this way. You know, by this time I'm getting locked up all the time. You know, life sucks. You know, I want to die. You know, at 16 years old, I want to die. Life isn't worth living. You know, but I think, you know what? I want to live old enough to be 18 and go to jail like tough guys do, and I want to die by the time I'm 21. And the plan is I want to turn 21. The book talks about we have grandiose ideas, and my dream, what I was living for, was on my 21st birthday, I'm wanted by all these cops from different counties and stuff. I've just robbed a bank. I got on my Harley, and I got this blonde on the back, man, and I'm drunker in hell, and they're chasing me, and now I'm going through county after county, and I got all these different counties chasing me, and I'm on the freeway, and I got town after town, and by this time there's national helicopters following me, and cops are shooting me on every overpass I went by, and I'm getting through county after county, almost out of the state, and I'm shot about 50 times in every news thing all over the country, shooting this and filming it, and my Harley just explodes into flames. I go end over end, and God, I go out in a blaze of glory. That's an awesome 21st birthday, boy. I won't have to deal with this rotten life anymore. And so I'm trudging through this, and I get really broke, and you know, I need a drink real bad one morning, and the only thing that was left was about a cap full of tequila gold. And I didn't know what I was going to do, and I couldn't get rid of the shakes, and I stuck that syringe in that cap of that tequila gold and shot that tequila gold up, and man, shooting booze is awesome, man. I mean, the inside of your body feels like it's a towering inferno, like you're on fire to the max, but I mean, a syringe full of tequila gold, you're not slinging drunk, man. And you're already there, like right now, and so that worked out pretty good, and I remember a lot of times sitting in front of the bar knowing I didn't have enough alcohol in me, and I couldn't go in and function in the bar yet, man, taking a syringe full of beer or vodka or whatever you're drinking at the time, and just shooting a syringe full of booze in your veins. And sometimes you made it in the bar, and sometimes you came to and the bar was closed and you missed the whole friggin' deal, you know. You know, my dream came true. I turned 18, and you want to know how a blind guy tells time?
It's 10:33 p.m.
I turned 18 and my dream came true. I did an armed robbery and I shot a cop. And I don't know how you guys do when you get locked up, but I do inventories. I get to AA, I don't want to do no inventories, but every time I get locked up, and my inventory is never included. Well, if you hadn't been drunk, you might not have. My inventories were like, I need to quit robbing those kind of places. 2 o'clock in the morning isn't a good time. You need to change your time, And it was a good plan to rob this place. It's where all the rich people went. And it was a good plan. Me and my partner planned that I was going to get the bar cash register and he was going to get the restaurant cash register, and or drinking tequila gold. You shouldn't drink tequila gold and rob places, but this time, we'd done that a lot of times and pulled it off, but this time we had a little orange sunshine with it. And man, you get into a real rich bar, and they wear all kinds of diamonds and shit, and on that orange sunshine, that shit's just glittering and everything. And it says, just don't get the money, come take my jewelry too. So we're robbing everybody in the joint, and a cop walks in and said freeze, and it freaked me out, and I shot him with a double-barrel shotgun, and thank God he was all the way across the restaurant and didn't kill him. And so I'm sitting in jail thinking, if I ever get out of this mess, like I said, I was doing the inventories. I'm not going to rob any place at 2 o'clock in the morning anymore, and I'm not going to rob any more really rich places. And I don't mind going to jail for shooting cops, but I would like to start out at 18 by assault and battery or a minor robbery or something, and work up to shooting cops right before I die. See, and I'm thinking, what does everybody else I know keep from going to jail for? As soon as they turn 18, and it's like man, they're getting married and having kids, and that's a scary place for a guy like me, because when you get married, I think you're supposed to show some kind of closeness and you care and show some feelings, but that means you could find out I'm afraid, and I don't know if I could do that, but I want to slow this down a little bit. So when I get out of jail, I check with all the girls I was engaged to, because the cops screwed up and I got off all those charges. But I'm going to keep, now there's no God or nothing. That don't have nothing to do with this. This is just, whatever. I'm going to slow this process down a little bit. So I check with all the girls I'm engaged with, because if one's good, more is better, right? And if you did that with just drinking, God, I'm sorry. And this one girl said she was pregnant, and back then, if you got a girl pregnant, you did the right thing and you married her, and it was a Hell's Angel wedding up in Reno, and it was a hell of a good party, and all these motorcycles everywhere, and that marriage was never to work right from the beginning, because that girl, she either lied to me, or we need to go on the Guinness World Book of Records, because that baby didn't pop out for 18 months. And that pissed me off, So I go back to jail for shooting another cop, and I get off those charges, and this girl's lied to me, and life sucks, and I moved to Reno, Nevada. And you guys did geographics. I never did. You might call moving to Reno, Nevada from Fresno, California geographic, but that's called looking after your own ass. If the state of California has an indictment for you, you move out of state. It's not doing a geographic. And I get up to Reno, man, and you know what? If a guy like me could have been born and raised in Reno, everything would be okay. There's all kinds of excitement. The town's alive 24 hours a day. They got the gambling. They got the free booze. You guys know about the free booze in Nevada, right? It's like you give them your paycheck and they give you free booze. You know what I'm saying? I thought, man, life's going to be different. Now it's going to be wonderful. And the second day, I'm sitting in jail. Saying, I wonder how they found out I got here so quick, not realizing that wherever I took me, I did the same things. And it isn't very long, and they got an indictment for my arrest in Reno or in Nevada. And I thought, well, you know what? I got to go till I'm 21 years old. The Vietnam War is going on. I'll go join the service, and they'll straighten me out. Take about 6 months, and I'll become a 10-star general about a year. And they don't have 10-star generals, but I'm going to become the first one, right? And then, I'm going to sell dope and stolen army tanks and stolen grenade launchers and all this, and I'm going to become a millionaire about a year and a half in the service. Die at 21, a millionaire. Life's wonderful, right? So it's a good plan. So I get on my Harley and I ride down to Fresno, and this is a big commitment for a guy like me. So I'm just guzzling this booze all the way down on my Harley, and I get to Fresno, the old recruiter station, and I'm parked out front, and it's all these steps going up into the recruiter's office, and then these double doors, and I ain't stupid. I know if I shut that Harley off and try to walk up all them steps, I'll never make it. So I came up with a good plan A. I thought I'd rev this Harley up, and if I did it just right and pop that clutch, man, I could make it up those steps, and about the top and where the landing is, I could wind her down and get off and walk through the double doors and join the army. I guess I overshot the mark a little bit. I don't know if you all have ever been on a Harley, but when you're airborne, them brakes don't work worth a shit, man. And in Bill, the first thing I related to in Bill's story, because I'm going through there and I ain't no Wall Street speculator. I didn't do that. But I got the part where it says, I have arrived. And I pictured me going airborne through them double doors on that Harley Davidson into the recruiter's office, and I shut that baby off before I hit the back wall, and I got off and I told the recruiters, I'm the one you're looking for. God. Because of my arrest record and stuff, they didn't want to let me in. They said my arrest record said I like to shoot people, and I told them, yeah, I told you I'm the one you're looking for. And they informed me that they were worried about our guys getting me over to Vietnam, but there's some people and relatives I had in the service I got to go in, and this is a big commitment for a guy like me, right, to join the service, because nobody tells me what to do, never. But I'm willing to make a little sacrifice to become a millionaire in a year from now, straighten my life out. And back then everybody from the West Coast was going back to the East Coast for basic training. They were coming out here for basic training. So in my mind, I figured that out to be about a 4-day bus trip. So I buy all this booze for 4 days. Came time to get on the bus, and everybody from California was going back east. And they put me on this other bus. I go, where's it going? They go toward California. And if you don't know, from Fresno, California, that's about a 3-hour bus ride. And now you have enough booze and stuff for 4 days. And you can't throw it away, right? And if you're a tough guy, you don't ride the bus, but you're willing to make a sacrifice. So you take the whole back seat. Nobody can sit back there, just you. And you drink and take all this stuff, and you get the four-door. And if you took as much stuff as I did, you'd be a little slow getting up off the back seat too. And they got this screaming drill sergeant. All these other little sissy kids just run off the bus like they say to do, And I come up with a good plan A. I get to thinking, man, if that guy knew who I was, he wouldn't be screaming and yelling at me. So I'll let him know who I am. And I get to thinking, man, you're pretty wasted, but if you could get down that center aisle of that bus, muster up a little speed. You know how when you ride a bus, you get to the end, you got to hang it right and go downhill, right? So while I'm going downhill, I'm sure I could muster up some speed and I could probably one punch that dude and knock him out. Plan A worked real good. I hit that dude and he went out like a light. As he was going down, I seen there was about these 2 7-foot gorillas behind him. First 10 minutes I'm in the Army, I'm locked up in the stockade. Doing another inventory. This is a bad decision to join the Army, you know. If I ever get out of this mess, I ain't joining the Army ever again, you know. And I got out of the stockade without their permission, and when you do that, you don't have no wheels, but you need a ride home, right? And you probably think I stole a car, huh? I'm not that kind of a guy. I found an abandoned armored truck. And I know it was abandoned because it was running and nobody was in it. And I need to get to Fresno, you know, and now there's no God, right? But you're driving along, going back to Fresno, and you notice there's a bunch of money in this thing. And I'm not a greedy person. This is in 1971. When I got to Fresno, I only took, I didn't take anything less than a $20 bill. Well, the truth of the matter, I couldn't stuff no more in my pockets. But I got $60,000. And have you ever noticed how fast money goes when it ain't yours? They didn't catch up for me for 6 months, and I didn't have a dime to make a phone call. And they sent me to the federal penitentiary. And being the tough guy I am, when I got there, I was going to let them know who I was, and I got thrown in the hole. And I stayed my whole time in the hole. And that's a hell of a feeling. You can't get any booze or anything, and you're locked up just with you, and you're afraid and you want to cry. But you can't because somebody might hear you, and you're so afraid sitting in that solitary confinement all by yourself. And you can't get anything to make the madness go away. And thank God the Vietnam War was going on because the military got me back and out of the prison. They would do that back then. And I was locked up in their stockade, and they decided they didn't want me anymore. And I left there, and I'm not quite 21 yet. And I'm thinking, man, you know what? The world really sucks, you know. And the world made this animal out of you, and nobody can make you mind. And it's just, you know, the world sucks. You might as well set out and make the world pay for what it's done to you. Hopefully you can die pretty quick. And he started sending me to Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 23 years old, and I had to go 5 days a week. I used to say I didn't have a choice, but it was either go back to the penitentiary or go to AA 5 days a week for a year, and I did it. And I took a year chip for being a year sober. Hell, I was sober. Well, I was sober 10 months. It was close enough to a year. You know? Well, I deserved that year chip, you know. It was, and as soon as the courts were off my ass, I was back out there again. You know, I'd find excuses why I didn't need to go to meetings, and of course I'd be right back in AA again, and just kept going on, in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous. And you know, I did that for the next 12 years. I was so stupid, I never figured out that you're going to end up back in AA. Why don't you just stay here? It took me 12 years of going in and out and doing it my way, and figuring out what steps were for me, and getting a sponsor but never calling him, or getting a sponsor and never going to those meetings anymore. And And what I did was I got to experience a lot more madness over that next 12 years, and a lot of fun things like going to Atascadero State Hospital, and I mean that's it's kind of I hear it's not like it used to be back when I went in the early 70s. It was really cool back then. You could smoke there then, and that was for just violent felony offenders for psychiatric evaluation, and we were so violent they Thorazine us out so we couldn't cause any problems or anything. And Thorazine is really cool. If you take enough Thorazine, you don't even know if it's day or if the world's real or whatever. It was like this. You get up in the morning, and your main function is to make it to the table and get a cigarette in your mouth. I mean, you just didn't pick it up and put it in your mouth. You worked on it, you built this up. You finally get that baby in your mouth. You don't know how many hours have passed so far. And since we're such violent criminals, we're not allowed to have matches or lighters or anything. It's just like this indentured, like lighter deal, like a cigarette lighter in your car or something like that, in the concrete wall. It's indentured in there about 2.5 inches or whatever. So you finally get that cigarette in your mouth. This was your main chore all day long. And you get up and you make it over the cigarette lighter. And you just aim for that hole. And you think, man, you give it your best, and you think you're lined up, and you just kind of fall forward. You guys think that's funny shit. I was serious, man. And if you missed the hole, it smashed the cigarette. And you went back to the table and you started all over again. And your whole main purpose all day long was to get that cigarette lit. And if you got it lit, then you just let it kind of hang there, And you watch it burn. You damn sure didn't smoke a filterless one. That's all you could do is watch it burn. You didn't even have enough shit to muster in a deep breath, Let the ashes fall down on the front of you and shit, God, I miss all that fun, But I'm going to skip a bunch. I'm going to go to my 7th marriage, and you guys didn't miss anything. It was just a lot of the same old crap. Marriages and, things like being married and marry another one, move her in. Those two don't get along, so you kick them out and move your girlfriend in, and you pay your employees $50 a piece to tie them off and haul them off, and just everyday things, So life sucks, and you're 30 years old, and you wish you were dead so desperately, and you've been shot a bunch of times by now by the cops, and you're wanting to die, and you can't die, and you're in the hospital a lot for the motorcycle wrecks, and you just can't die no matter what, and you marry the 7th wife, and you have a baby boy, and you get your business going again, you get the ranch again, and you got the pigs and everything, and cows and horses and all that crap, and on the outside, everything looks like you got it together. You got the Lincolns again. You got the new Harley again. And life seems like it's really good, but you want to die so desperately. And she won't come back one night when you run her off. And you're drunk and loaded, and you think, man, you know what? I'm not going to let another wife do this. And you grab a shotgun. You stop at 7-Eleven to buy 2 bottles of champagne to celebrate blowing her head off. and you're really wasted, and you get over there and their neighbors are there and they're outside and it doesn't matter, you know. They know you've been locked up a lot and it doesn't matter, and she's not home. You kick the window in and you're celebrating, guzzling the champagne and taking all kinds of other things. You're going to blow her head off when she walks in the door, and the SWAT team rolls up, and at this time in your life you can't shoot another cop. But you can't walk outside and say, hey, I give up, because tough guys don't do that. And it comes in your head that, you know what, your kids would be better off without you in this world, and you stick the shotgun to your head and you pull the trigger. And the SWAT team comes in 4 hours later, and because they know it's Matt Green inside, and they're scared to death, you know, because Matt Green shoots cops. And you're walking around with your face blowing all off and your eyeballs hanging out, and there's blood and your nose all over the ceiling of the walls. And they take you to the hospital and they say there's nothing we could do for the guy, and they leave you lay there for 4 hours. And finally, there's just a mass. They can't tell what's my face or anything, and they decide they're going to do something. And it's in my medical records that a power greater than them kept me alive. There was nothing they could do. And when I came out of that coma months and months and months later, every part of my body was strapped with leather restraints that would move, and I couldn't move anything. I was all the way blind, and I didn't have a plate. If I pop this plate out, I still can't talk. And I didn't have a plate then, and I had tubes sticking out of me everywhere and life support systems keeping me alive. And doctors would come in on a daily basis and tell me, boy, we're sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. You're going to die. And that's where I got introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous again. They would come up there and knock on my door and ask me if they could read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And they'd sit down and start reading me that stupid book like I had a choice in this matter, you know. And they didn't do it that one time. They came in for hours on end. They took shifts coming in there day after day, week after week, month after month. And so desperately I wanted to tell them, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. By this time I've been going to AA off and on for 10 years. But my case is different. I'm blind and I'm dying. You know, yeah, if my case wasn't different than yours, I would do the deal that you do. But my case is different, you see. And when I lived and left the hospital, you know, life's over, and I'm in fear that all the people I'd shot and screwed over in my life, they're going to find out I'm blind now because it was on national news. And they're going to come hunt me down and take advantage of me and stuff and blow me away. And I just want to die so desperately. And these people from AA would come by and they'd bring me these speaker tapes. I'd listen to them and think, God, if I was that bad, I'd do the AA deal too. But you see, my case is a little bit different. You know, I'm blind and I don't have no face. You know, so much of my face was missing you could physically stick your fist inside my head. You know, I've had 87 surgeries put me this far back together. You know, 10 to 39 and a half hour surgeries. And I like to tell you I stayed sober, but that wasn't true. They came and took me to these stupid meetings every day because I didn't have no other place to go. I was full of fear. And we would go to 3 to 5 meetings every day, and they'd say, Matt, let's go to the coffee shop after the meeting. I'd tell them I would, but man, you know what? I hurt so bad I need to go home. And they'd take me home, and they'd read me the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I expected you to get my coffee, you see, because I'm blind, crippled, handicapped, disabled, and helpless, man. And Alcoholics Anonymous did what they were supposed to do, and they did the deal. And I did things like I moved clear out by the lake to get away from them coming and picking me up. And if you're new and you come up with that idea, don't do that because they come earlier and stay later, you know. And over the next couple of years, I drank 4 times, and because I didn't have no solution to my madness. And my last overdose was January 25th, 1987, so my sobriety date is January 26th, 1987. It's time to check out because this AA shit doesn't work. I've been saving up all my pills for my surgeries and suffering through the pain, and because I know there's going to be a day when I can't take AA and life anymore, and it sucks, and And so I guzzled 2.5 gallons of vodka down to swallow these 455 synthetic morphine tablets. This will work. And when I came to out of that coma, I was really pissed. You know, what I didn't realize all these years was that there's a loving, caring, forgiving God in this world, and that no matter what you do, if He's not ready to take you home, you're not going to die. All you're going to do is keep missing body parts. By this time in my life, my whole body's wired and pinned and screwed, and bone grafts and muscle grafts and artery grafts and phony parts here and phony parts there. I got scar tissue everywhere. I mean, there's only one part of me still left in original shape, and I'd like to keep it that way, you know what I'm saying? Everybody always thinks they know what part that is, you know. But so it came to me, man, when I came to out of that coma, that I'm going to keep doing the same thing I'm doing until I end up in a sane asylum, to end up in a straitjacket. I've been in the straitjackets before, and they weren't going to give me any Thorazine. I was going to have to think for the rest of my life. And by now I'm not going to have any arms and legs, and you know, and you know what? I just couldn't do it anymore. I don't believe in God, but I looked up and I cried out. Well, it was a cussing deal, and I don't pray that way anymore. And I really truly believe that God understands it. He knows that's the best you can do, and go ahead and pray that way till you can do better. And it came through my head, you know, that to get on your knees and pray, and I did that. And I looked up and I go, I don't even know how to pray, and I did the best I could, and I told God I'd be willing to do. You know, I said, I don't believe in you. There probably isn't one. If there is, I'm really screwed. Well, there's a lot of cussing going on, but I'd be willing to do anything they told me to do in Alcoholics Anonymous from this day on. And when I was on my knees surrendering like that, my home group was getting over. The Lord's Prayer was said, so the meeting was over, and they collected enough money in the basket to buy me the big book on tape. And I believe that was God letting them know that, hey, Matt surrendered to you guys. Go ahead and spend the money on the tapes. He won't hawk them now. You can call it whatever you want, but I believe that was God letting them know. The miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous started to work in my life because I didn't expect you to do it for me anymore. I started reaching my hand out and asking what I need to do. What do you want me to do next? I didn't sit there and expect you to do it for me anymore. And AA will do it for you, but the miracle can't happen in your life when you expect them to do it for you. And they called me boy, and I hated that. You don't call a tough guy boy. And I used to do things like I was all the way blind then, and like I'm still most way blind. This was just a big blur out here, and so there's just thousands of good-looking women in here tonight, and you know, I can only hear what kind of God creatures you are by how you sound, you know, and so you're all beautiful today, the women in Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, and you know, I used to tell my sponsor things like, keep talking and call me boy, and so I can find you and I'll whip your ass, and he'd giggle and then he'd move and I couldn't find him, but they'd tell me, boy, pick up the cigarette butts. And I thought they had a circus act. You know, oh, we're going to gather at the window and watch a blind boy pick up cigarette butts. And you know, that worked a little over 17 years ago. So I still pick up the cigarette butts, because I don't know if I quit picking up the cigarette butts if I'll get drunk. I don't know what I did in the beginning kept me sober. So I'd keep doing them all. And I heard Johnny Harris talk about that, and it sounded good. So I kept doing it all. And I started asking them, you know, if they'd pick me up and give me rides and take me to the coffee shops. And I started asking what those stupid initials were in Alcoholics Anonymous, like what's that H&I crap. And if you don't want to stay sober, don't ask what those initials are, because they got AA elections around here. And if you ask what those initials are, you'll be it. And a week sober, I started going into the jail, and it's been over 17 years, and I still go into jail. And I love going into jail. I love having a captive audience. They have to stay there and listen. They can't leave. You know. You know, in the beginning, they told me that guys that get involved in H&I and stay involved in H&I, a lot more of them stay sober than just people that work the steps and go to meetings. So I want to stay sober. I want to do whatever it takes to stay sober. So I've been involved in H&I for my whole sobriety. I mean, I've been involved in every form of service in Alcoholics Anonymous. I asked my sponsor, what specifically do I need to do? And he goes, as sick as you are, you need to try it all to find out where you fit. You know, I was involved in general service for a lot of years, and I learned a lot. You know, and our speaker earlier talked about the concepts, and I learned about the concepts. Most people don't even know what they are. Most people don't even know what the heck the traditions are, much less the concepts. You know, and you know, I got involved in intergroup, and I became the intergroup chairperson, and I did that for 6 years, and I volunteered at central office, and you know, I became public information, did that for a long time. I was on the steering committee for my home group for 8 years. And, you know, I've never gone any time in sobriety without a service commitment in Alcoholics Anonymous. And there's been a million times when things came down that I didn't want to do it. But you know what? They taught me in the beginning that I get commitments in AA. You know, KB Budd, our old timer that died a couple years ago, I asked KB, when can you not keep a commitment? I was thinking like if you had a good-looking blonde and had a date with her, you know. And he said, boy, if you're dead or having major surgery. I go, that's it? And he goes, in Alcoholics Anonymous, we keep commitments no matter what. Like it or not, you keep a commitment. And I'm so grateful to that man that taught me that, because there's been a lot of times in Alcoholics Anonymous that when things happen in my life, I don't want to keep my AA commitments, because you know, like when my dad's dying and he needs taken care of because he wants to die at home, and there's nobody to do it but you. Your brothers and sisters aren't in the program, and they won't do the deal. But you learned here to do it whether you like it or not. And when you made your amends to your father, you started calling your dad Shiny. And your dad's dying of cancer, and he needs things done to him. He needs pills shoved up his rear end, and you don't want to do it. But you learned here early in sobriety to keep the commitments whether you like it or not. And you do this commitment for your dad, man. And he doesn't open his eyes for the last 2 days of his life. And you know he's dying. He's taking his last breath. And you run up to the bed and you tell him, Dad, when you get up there, tell him I call you Shiny, okay? And my dad opens his eyes and he shakes his head yes. And he closes his eyes and he dies, man. And you thank God for the old timers in Alcoholics Anonymous that taught you to keep the commitment whether you like it or not. You see, that was a spiritual experience to get to go through that with my dad. My brothers and sisters don't get to experience that. You know, when the doctors perform the wrong surgery on your little boy and the doctors tell you he's not going to live, and you're living in the hospital, and you're leaving only to do your AA commitments at the jail and the prisons, and you don't want to do it, and because you want to stay at your little boy's side, and your sponsees are there sitting at your little boy's side when you're keeping your AA commitment. And it's a 2-month ordeal, and you want to kill a doctor, so you got to pipe up your leg. But you got to look cool in front of your sponsees, so you don't kill the doctor while your sponsees are there. And the friggin' sponsees won't ever leave, man. And that's back when I was wearing the big bell bottoms still. But even though they're big bell bottoms, you know, a pipe after a couple of days and your pant leg gets uncomfortable as hell. And say you screw it and you get rid of the pipe, and your little boy, he does live through it, but he's had a bunch of surgeries and he's got scars all over him like you do. And he gets out of the hospital and you run around with your little boy all over AA, and they're flying you and your little boy all over the country. And he pulls his shirt up and says, Daddy, pull your shirt up. And he tells him, look, me and Daddy look alike, you know. Because you're involved in Alcoholics Anonymous and you keep your commitments, there's the people that stand and take care of you when you're not capable of doing it. And I had those times in sobriety, and you know, and a lot of million good things happen in AA, you know, and you know there's a child out there and you need to make amends for this child, and and you try to find this child, but you got this fear because a lot of years ago the judge told you if you ever try to find out anything about this child or try to have contact with their mother, you're going back to prison. But you know, you got this stupid friggin' ninth step, and you know, if you're new and they tell you you got to work the steps in order, that's bullshit. I tried that when I was new. You know, when the IRS came to my house indicting me for income tax evasion when I was brand new, I told them, I go, I'm not on the ninth step yet. I'd love. Yeah, and I owed the IRS $543,000, and they didn't give a shit what step I was on. And when the cops came knocking on my door because I had warrants for primary arrest, I tried that ninth step shit again too, and they didn't give a shit what step I was on. If you're new, you're going to hear shit around here like keep coming back, it gets better. I'm going to tell you what my first year was like. My first year I owed over $1 million when I got sober. I got indicted from IRS for $543,000. I went back with my 7th ex-wife, and I was gone to the noon meeting, and she changed the locks on the door while I was gone to the noon meeting. I had emergency back surgery. I'm just going to hit the highlights, not all the other shit. I got indicted for murder, 9 months sober, and they told me, keep coming back, it gets better. And I go, if this shit gets any better, I don't know if I could take it, man. You know, and you get your first big check, man, for a construction job, because I got my contractor's license back in sobriety, and it's $7,000, man, and you want to buy a steak, but you're scared you got all this money, and you ask your sponsor to help you, and he lets you buy top ramen and macaroni and cheese, and I said, man, you know, we ain't got no steak in there yet. He said, boy, that's not your money we're spending. You owe back child support, IRS, that's their money, not yours. It's like, man, I picked the wrong friggin' sponsor. I worked hard. I deserve a steak. But because I followed direction, and I wanted to file bankruptcy. My sponsor told me an egotistical asshole like me couldn't stay sober, taking the easy way out. I had to pay the money back. And because I followed direction, 7 years and 2 months later, I made the last payment and paid that $1.2 million back. Still would like to file bankruptcy, though. I missed out on a lot of friggin' steaks, man. But I followed direction. Like it or not, I followed direction. You know, I made a commitment in the beginning to do whatever He asked of me and whatever God asked of me. And I've tried to do that to the best of my ability this day. But see, you got this night stuff, and you know there's a kid out there, so you finally, you go over to San Luis Obispo, you know, it's one of those deals, they don't pay you no gas, no nothing, it's in the middle of the week, you're missing work. I don't want to do this friggin' thing to a bunch of snot-nosed brats that are locked up, and you know, why me, and then, you know, and it's like I go do it, and on the way back we stop in Paso Robles, and something's bugging me to look in this telephone book, and I think, man, that can't be God saying that, because I'm blind. I can't see it anyways. You know, this gal's probably remarried, got a different name. We never lived in this town. And my sponsor, he goes, what's wrong? And I go, man, it ain't nothing. Get in the car. Let's get the hell out of this town. It's spooked here. And we get about 10 miles down the road, and I go, turn this car around. And we turn the car around, and we go back, and I told him what name to look in the phone book, and bigger and shit, there it is. Oh, man. So I called up, and this little girl answers the phone, and I go, is Vicky there? And she goes, no. And I go, is she at work? And she goes, yeah. And I go, well, could you take my name and number down and let her know I called? And she goes, yeah, let me get a piece of paper and pencil. And this little girl gets a paper and pencil and goes, okay, what's your name? And I go, Matt Green. And I heard this, and I go, what does that name mean something to you? And she goes, yeah, you're my dead father. And I wanted to friggin' die, man. You know, all that feelings of being a worthless scumbag biker and an ex-convict and just a sorry piece of shit all came back, man. And then now I'm going back to prison because I had contact with him, and she wanted me to come over, and I couldn't do it. And I told her to have her mother call me, and you know, I left God in the back seat of that car on the way home, and I got in all this fear, and you know, I didn't call my sponsor. I didn't call anybody. And it took her 6 hours later before she called, and I was really pissed. And I started explaining to her that I was in a program called Alcoholics Anonymous, and she let me know that she was sober too, and it can't come to find out she was a year sober more than me. It pissed me off. But I got to go over, and she said I could have a relationship with my daughter, and me and my daughter have an awesome relationship today. And the sad thing is she got a resentment today and quit going to meetings and didn't go to meetings for 8 years. And last November she committed suicide and died sober because she got our book talks about fancy or real, and I believe it was a fancied idea she had. Because some things she was going through, and she projected that the group was perceiving her as a certain way, and I don't believe that to be true. I wasn't there, I can't say, but she quit going to AA. And then I guess death became her best option. And that's a sad thing, but you know what? Because of the amends steps, I got to find this daughter, I got to have a relationship with her, and then, you know, after a short period of time, you know, her mother says, hey, how about some back child support? And you go, dang it, man, you know.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
I ain't never going to get through this crap, and you make up all the back child support, and you do some remodeling on their house for you never being there as a father, and do what you can. And this daughter goes to jail, and she calls you, you know, she's 18, and she went to jail, and she was drunk and loaded and got thrown in jail, and she wants you to bail her out. And you ask her if she learned anything, and she says, yeah, drink and take acid and don't drive. So you have to leave your daughter in jail. If she would have said, Dad, yeah, come take me to a meeting or a recovery home, I'd been right there. And it was so hard, you know. And I'd like to tell you I've gone all these years in Alcoholics Anonymous, and all my kids turned out perfect. But all my kids have been arrested for a felony, all of them once. But I like to believe, because of the God I found, my kids talk to me about God. And the example I've said all these years, that my kids have straightened their lives up, and they've all gotten their records expunged, and they're all doing good. And shortly after my daughter gets out of jail, she calls and tells me, Dad, I'm pregnant. And it's like, oh, man, I'm going to have to take care of this grandchild. Oh, much worse than that, I'm going to have to go to meetings and tell people I'm a grandpa. If you're a grandpa, that means you're old, right? But you learn here to do the deal whether you like it or not. And I go up to the hospital, and all the way up to her room, I'm going, you know, when she had the baby, and I'm going, do it whether you like it or not. And my daughter goes, do you want to hold your granddaughter? And my mouth says yes, and my head says hell no. I get this flaming red-headed little granddaughter in my arms. Man, I'll tell you, I am one awesome grandpa, man. And that little red-headed dude I call her my little flaming red-headed dude. She always tells me, Papa, I'm not a dude. But she just turned 8 years old this month, and man, I have a 3-year-old grandson, and they love to see their grandpa, man. And my daughter hates it because I take him to Toys R Us and places like that, and my granddaughter will get all this stuff she wants, and she'll go, Papa, will your plastic pay for this stuff? And I tell her, baby, anything you want, just throw it in there, you know. And my daughter doesn't like it, but I tell her she's got to work some steps if she wants it to change or anything. But, you know, I'm going to buy these grandkids whatever they want. And, you know, God's been awesome in my life. And it's because I've done what He's asked of me, and because I still do that. You know, I'm not one of those you hear meetings say, you know, Well, I'm not going to pick up the cigarette butts anymore. I'll leave that for the newcomers to do. Man, if you want to pick up cigarette butts at my home group at the noon meeting, it starts at 12, and they taught me that if you're there later in 11:30, you're late to a meeting. So if you want to pick up the cigarette butts, you got to get there before 11:15. I used to get there at like 11:25, but newcomers were showing up to pick up cigarette butts, so now I get there at 11:15 to make sure I get to pick them up. Because it works, and I don't know. What I've done is I've just gotten as involved in Alcoholics Anonymous. They taught me no matter what's going on in my life, if I do the deal in Alcoholics Anonymous and try to, the book says that we become godlike. And so we try, everything I do a lot of writing all the time. Some people say that's a waste of paper. It works for me. I don't know what works for you. But I do a lot of writing, and whatever kind of decisions I have or anything I think I would like to do, I write it out. Is this a godlike thing I'm trying to do? And that eliminates a lot of my bullshit. If I'm left to my own head to figure out, is this a godlike thing to do, this decision I'm trying to make, I could calm myself into believing it really is. But when I get that pen and paper out, I can't do it. I write the truth down, and the truth is what equals serenity in my life. And so I do it a lot. And because I've done that, I've gotten the privilege of, like taking my ex back to court and winning sole custody of that child. A scumbag like me winning sole custody of a child, it shouldn't happen for a guy like me. And I got the privilege for a lot of years, even with my record. I can't anymore, but I went into penitentiaries and started meetings in penitentiaries all up and down the state. And that was a lot of fun for a lot of years. And then now, because they revised the policy, I can't go in anymore. And I do the jails, and I'm coordinator of a long-term psychiatric ward. And, I sponsor a lot of guys, and I just do a lot of stuff. I still do the things that they taught me in the beginning. Listen to the tape every day. They said call at least 3 people every day, so I call 5 people every day. If 3 works, 5's going to be better. I guess I still got that more better, I still pray, and I still do a half-hour meditation every day. And I still walk, and I still listen to the sounds of God, I still do the things that worked in the beginning at 17 years sober. And because I've done that, and things have happened. I got married in sobriety, and I got divorced. I've been going through a 2.5 year out of 8 marriages. This one was in sobriety. This is the nastiest one yet. And the old timers told me, man, you know what? You do what you do in Alcoholics Anonymous. They told me your main purpose here is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety. It isn't to fix that divorce or win or whatever. They say you're to do the footwork. You're to get the attorney. You're supposed to. But if your attorney asks you for papers, you get it to them. You got to trust the process. Your job is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety, period. And that's what I've done in this divorce. And she's not doing that. She quit going to meetings, and she's, mad as hell and hates the world. And I pray she can find her way back to Al-Anon again. And because she was happy at one time. And I leave the process up to the judges and the courts and God. And God and my lawyers, not to court systems. Man, I hate leaving up to them, but I have to, because that's not my job. My job is to do what I do in Alcoholics Anonymous. And because I've done that, things like a little while ago, this SWAT sergeant called me up, and I wanted to hang the phone up. But if you're new, I'm going to give you some spiritual wisdom. If the cops call you, they have your address already, so don't hang up the phone. But he wanted a bid on a masonry job, and so I went over there, and I get over there, and he's in his cop uniform, and a SWAT uniform, and the cop car's in the driveway. It's broad daylight. Neighbors are out. Man, this is a setup. But I learned here to do the deal, man. And so I walk up and I hold my hand out and I go, "Hi, I'm Matt Green. I started to say I'm an alcoholic, but I didn't say nothing." And then he goes, "Yeah, I know who you are. I used to arrest you." And my head goes, "Oh, shit." And he goes, "I was the first one on the scene when you shot yourself. I've heard nothing but good stuff about you for a lot of years." And I gave him a bid. It was just a one-day deal. And I went home and he called me and wanted me to come back and add a little bit more, and it still was a one-day deal. And he goes, "When can you do it?" And I go, "We could do it tomorrow." He goes, "Well, I won't be here." He goes, "Well, wait a minute." And he reaches in his pocket and he pulls out these house keys. He peels off these house keys and goes, "Here's a key to my house." I ain't taking it. I may be blind and alcoholic, but I ain't stupid, you know what I'm saying? He goes, "No, Matt, it's okay. Take it. I trust you." And I took that cop's key and I put it in my pocket, and I'd like to tell you I went home and I'm the spiritual guru in AA. I slept like a baby. That would be a lie. I didn't sleep at all that night. Not none, man. That freaked me out, having that cop's key in my pocket. And we went and did that job, and he pulled up as we were cleaning up, and he gave me the check, and the neighbors were out mowing the lawns, and he's in a SWAT uniform. He's also in charge of the rifle range, and he goes, "Check this out, Matt." And he opens his trunk up, and it's broad daylight. Neighbors mowing lawns, people sweeping their gutters. He's handing me these guns that are loaded. "Check this one out." And I'm thinking, man, I shoot cops, and he's handing me a loaded guns. And I ain't kidding, man. I was scared, really, really scared, and I lied. I said, "Hey, you know what? I got to get to the bank and cash this check so I can pay my guys." That was a lie. I just wanted out there. And he goes, "Okay, Matt." And he puts the gun in the trunk, and he shuts it, and he reaches over and he throws his arms around me, and I put my arms around him, and he's crying. It's broad daylight, and people are watching us, and he's crying, and I get to crying, and he tells me, "Matt, because of God, it's a pleasure to know you today, and I love you." And I'm crying, and I tell him, because of God, I love you too. And because I've done the deals in Alcoholics Anonymous, I get to feel those great feelings today. On page 164, it says, "Great events have come to pass for you and countless others." Great events have really come to pass in my life. And I owe it all to you and God and the service in Alcoholics Anonymous. Thanks for having me, and God bless you.
We hope you've enjoyed this recording. To obtain additional copies, receive a free catalog of AA and Al-Anon talks, or to find out about our Tape and CD of the Month Club, call Encore Audio Archives at 1-800-878-1308, or visit our website at www.12steptapes.com.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. Shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.